The thing that led me to follow you guys was Helen's very prolific on social media as well. You should follow her. Yep. What I just loved about her reels is, I don't know, I have a marketing background way in the back and have done sales, and I'm also familiar with NLP and different influence techniques and stuff like that. After a certain while, you get a feeling when people are bullshitting you. It's kind of like, don't bullshit a bullshitter. And what I loved about Helen is, in the moment she opened her mouth, it was profound. It was well thought through. So both of you have a great narrative style as well that kind of brings people in, because I think people are really suffering out there. I think, everybody's telling me in the United States, everybody's on board with AI and everybody's driving for AI and everybody has a clear path and strategy. I don't have the same feeling about that in Europe. I think there's a lot of lip service going on with companies. I think a lot of them are paying lip service and hoping to sit it out and maybe not be the first movers, but as soon as the first movers fail and you get your first lessons learned, maybe take those use cases and avoid the heavy costs that are involved. And I don't even think that strategy for some companies is such a bad idea before they invest in something that they don't understand. But I think the whole community is longing for people who have, like you know, who do the research, who know the studies, who have a more profound background. I mean, I was looking a little bit about your background. You went to Yale, and you got a bachelor's in history, if I'm not mistaken. Right. Yeah. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Steve Jobs, because, a lot of people say, Steve Jobs was a programmer and engineer. No, he wasn't. He was, I don't even know what his degree was, but his big specialty was fonts and design and things like that. And I think that's an ongoing discussion also in AI, is what is a good degree to face the challenge of AI. And I think we need, I think the humanistic perspective and the liberal arts perspective is key here. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. It's, I did get a degree in history. I love history because it helps provide different lenses on how humans have interacted with each other and with the world in the past. There is no one single historical representation. I mean, history is gathers as much as you can possibly get your hands around, but you, when you're an historian, you know that it's not the complete truth, because you can't understand every other thing that's happening in the world. There was I wish I could remember off the top of my head, there's a great book about being an historian written by a history prof from Johns Hopkins in the last couple of years. And he did a great job of describing why that's true. And I bring it up because it's sort of, I think it's one of the things that drives me in terms of thinking about AI. There is this sort of idea that AI is all-knowing and omniscient and it knows everything, but it clearly doesn't. It's been trained on an extraordinary amount of information, but all of that information had been digitized. And there's only so much of the historical record of the planet that has been digitized. There is only so much of the historical knowledge of the planet that we even understand, so we could even describe. Everything from what's happening under the ground to describing the gesture you're making right now. Right. We think a lot about gestures. One of our advisors, Barbara Tversky, has done foundational work on this. And gestures are important. We think with gestures, we communicate with gestures. They aren't written down very easily or well, right? They aren't captured. So there's this whole part of what's happened in the past and how those patterns of the past might inform the future. But you have to have the humbleness to understand that this is not, what you know is not complete. So how can you find the value in what you do know as an historian, or what the model might know as a model, and put that in the context of all the other stuff that has been known or will need to be known that's not part of that study? And so how do you find those gaps and so forth? So I do think, sort of back to your sort of core point, humanities, I think, is extremely important because, well, we're humans. And I kind of like being human. I think that being a good human to each other and to the planet is an important thing. And so studying the humanities is how we understand it. So the interesting thing, there's a recent, we just put up a research piece yesterday that looks at labor and jobs and sort of gets at one of your questions here. So a lot of the work around labor and jobs has been done by looking at what's called the ONET database, an acronym that's part of the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's sort of the canonical, for many decades, resource for understanding what people do at work across nearly, it's sort of 894 jobs or something like that. It's an extraordinary body of work. And 10 years ago, we did a deep dive and studied it to try and figure out where we thought AI might automate work. It was definitely the idea back then, was sort of the name that we were thinking about, and where it might not. And we flipped it around. We did an unusual thing, which was trying to show where work wouldn't be automated, and so where the sort of special parts are for humans. And we did that again this time, slightly differently. Partly 10 years ago, I was driving the analysis, and this time Helen was driving the analysis. So I have incredible respect for the incredible amount of work that she just did. But we came out of it with a different kind of idea. 10 years ago, we thought that the thing that you needed to know, the thing you should go study, the major you should have, as you were asking about in college, was to sort of think about something about unpredictability. So we looked at how you interact with physical spaces, or we called a category bugs and bad things, for epidemiologists, and a variety of things about unpredictability. What's interesting now is we look at that and we realize that we weren't necessarily wrong. We weren't wrong at the time. It's more that the platform, the technology shifted underneath us in a way that we didn't quite anticipate, which is that the machines now handle a lot of unpredictability. That's one of the things that generative AI can do, and agents can handle unpredictability. They are given a goal, they try a thing, they fail, they try another thing, they fail, they try another thing. They're dealing with this sort of unpredictable nature. It's different from humans and how we handle unpredictability, but there is something there. And that meant that line that we had drawn was a little bit different. Now we look at it and we think what we've discovered now is concept of irreducible complexity.